Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to this special broadcast on Sansad TV. I am Teena Jha. The countdown to the Union Budget 2023-24 has begun, and with this being the last full budget of the Modi government ahead of the 2024 general elections, expectations of different sectors have also started to build up. What will be the focus of Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman? At a time when most of the world is staring at a recession, how will the Finance Minister lay a roadmap ensuring sustained growth for India? We'll decode the expectations of different sectors from the Union Budget along with the challenges before the Finance Minister in a series of episodes over the next few days in our special program Arthniti. Today our focus is going to be on the education sector. India today is the youngest country in the world. More than 1/4 of our population is under the age of 15. Over half the population of our country is below 30. But our spending on education is significantly low. Since the Kothari Commission in 1966 to the new education policy of 2020, the focus repeatedly has been on increasing the budget for the sector to 6% of the GDP. That, however, remains a distant reality, and with unprecedented challenges such as the pandemic that not just battered economies worldwide but also had a crippling effect on education. Let's take a look at now how the sector has reinvented itself over the last 2 years. What are its expectations from the most important financial event of the year? We'll analyze with a panel of experts joining us on the program. Delighted to have with us in the studio Professor Saroj Sharma, Chairperson, National Institute for Open Schooling, Mr. Surendra Nath Tripathi, Director General, Indian Institute of Public Administration, and Dr. Preeti Bajaj, Vice Chancellor, Lovely Professional University. She joins us virtually on the program today. Welcome to all the panelists for joining us on this special broadcast today. Professor Sharma, allow me to begin the program today with you. Yes. The most obvious question, in the run-up to the budget every year, expectations from each and every sector begin to build up. Now, as the countdown for the budget 2023-24 has begun, what do you think the Finance Minister will offer for the education sector?
See, it is a very prominent and important time. National Education Policy 2020 is on the fore, and as an head of the autonomous body, we are into implementation process. National Education Policy, it talks about access, equity and quality. So literacy rate is up to 83%, 83 point something. So how to make other out of school children into main lead of education sector, and equity, how to bring equity and maintaining the quality. These are the three major domains where we have to work together, and definitely we have to be very optimistic, and since it is the prime agenda of this government and we all are working very hard in its implementation, I think definitely this budget will bring very good news, very good results, and also a good pathway, good path-breaking ways and new implementation processes and new ways to implement through financial aspects. I am very optimistic with this.
Okay, that's that optimism. Do you see that also, Dr. Tripathi? The fact is that since 1966, I mentioned the Kothari Commission to the new education policy 2020, the thrust has been on increasing spending in the education sector, and because of the challenges that we now face, how much scope does the Finance Minister have to actually increase the budgetary allocation for the education sector?
You see, it's balancing hope and desire. Desire is to have as much as we want. Hope is to get as was expected and promised. 68 to NEP, that 6% of GDP to be spent in social capital is not a very high hope. For a rising country, that is minimum that we should spend to become a Shrestha Bharat, Ek Bharat and Shrestha Bharat. Because the only way to develop population at the billion plus people of India is to invest in social sector. How much is good enough? Whether 6% itself is good enough? Maybe global examples are there that we always know that UK and other economies, they are spending slightly above 5%. Very few countries are in 6% zone. So 6% is the hope and target. But let's expect that this budget, Honorable Finance Minister will be kind enough toward this area. The trend is very encouraging. From 2.8 to 3.1% of GDP being spent in education is a welcome sign. Of course, ye dil mange more, so we all expect more and a little more hopeful approach towards education. Second thing, as my previous speaker was telling, that there are certain objectives in education. Education and credit can make a nation great. But today our pedagogy of education also need a shift. New education policy gives a chance that from taking test to taking risk, if we want to prepare our society for that area, what we call it in other word, entrepreneurial society, then education is the best piece where government should invest. If I had full freedom, I could have given enough money for this. But fact remains that we can only hope that Honorable Finance Minister and the Honorable Prime Minister, who has always been kind towards education, will be more generous this time.
You're right. I think barring the COVID year, Dr. Bajaj, the performance and the focus of this government, particularly towards the education sector, has been quite good. Despite the challenges, there have been several initiatives that this government has brought about, the reforms that we actually want to see. But the fact remains that if we want to leverage the demographic dividend that we keep talking about, we are the youngest country in the world today. This window is not going to be forever. We need to do things and at a fast pace. So what is it that you think can bring about the transformation if we want to become a developed country in the next 25 years by 2047? That's the vision that the Prime Minister has laid out.
I would say the initiatives have been, a lot of initiatives have been taken. But my concern, I will share my concern first. The one is the spendings in last few years. If you see, in spite of when we are talking about 6% of, which is the ideal budget spending, budget allocation, whatever has been allocated, what is the actual utilization? And then utilization, I could see a lot of difference in that. How much has been utilized? So look at that percentage, 16%, 16%, 16%. So the concern is for 3 consecutive years, in spite of allocation, are we able to utilize the budget, spend that budget? That is one. But I really appreciate the way it was allocated in 2022, which was 22-23, and that was, almost 22% growth was there. And this year also, I expect when we are talking about 3.1%, it was there. So this year, approximately it was 4828 CR. I think this was allocated for the higher education. So since I belongs to the higher education, I believe this year's it is going to be around 50 CR. And if we look at overall, the percentage which was allocation to higher education was much lesser than the school education. Again, it's a welcome move because foundation has to be good one. But still, the percentage allocation for higher education can still be improved. Some projects like Institute of Eminence has to be, at fast track because that's long pending. Digital university, the government is working very aggressively. So we expect digital universities to come over here. The foreign universities already, the government is taking a lot of moves in aggressively. They are working on whether it is still another concern of mine is on research. The total funding, almost budget for 0.5% was allocated as in research budget within the total budget, which is much less. So total budget within the higher education. So that percentage needs to be improved.
COVID pandemic has taught us that research and innovation are areas that cannot be overlooked. So enough attention has to be given to that particular sector. But whether the onus lies only on the government, what can the private sector actually do about it is something that I'll come to you, Dr. Sharma, in just a bit. But before that, let me take our viewers through some of the major schemes that have been progressed, that have in fact been launched and approved just last year in the education sector. So the Cabinet approved a newly centrally sponsored scheme called the Prime Minister's Schools for Rising India, or PM Shri. This happened on the 7th of September 2022. These skills will showcase, These schools will showcase the implementation of the National Education Policy 2020 and emerge as exemplar schools over a period of time. Also, under the scheme, there is provision of setting up of more than 14,500 PM Shri schools. By strengthening the current schools, the duration of the scheme is proposed to be from 2022-23 to 26-27. Also, the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, the CCEA, has approved the continuation of PM Poshan scheme in schools for the 5-year period between 2021-22 to 2025-26, with the financial outlay of central share of 54,061 crore rupees for 5 years from 2021 again to the period of 2025-26. And the final, which has happened recently, one of the major initiatives which was in the pipeline, the UGC's draft rules to allow foreign universities to set up campuses in India will attract several international schools. UGC Chairman M. Jagdish Kumar announced that in keeping with the new Education Policy 2020, the next step in the internationalization of Indian higher education would be granting permission to foreign universities to set up campuses in the country. So how beneficial is that going to be? Whether a reverse can also happen is something that I'll also come back to. But coming to the aspect of research and innovation, we all realize the importance, and during the COVID pandemic, we've seen how Indian-made vaccines have not just helped the population within the country, but we've been able to, expand it to other countries also. And therefore, it goes without saying that innovation and research is something that we have to, put our strength to, put our focus to. How can that happen in collaboration with the public and private sector?
Yes. Teena, when you say that expenditure, 6%, we always talk 6%, but 70% of stake is with states, right? India is having very decentralized nature of education system. So when we talk about 6%, is it only with central government, right? Private players are there, public, it is the era of public-private partnership and also corporate social responsibility. When we see our ancient time, education was the responsibility of society. And until before the colonial period in India, also it was responsibility of society. So we were literate, but after when Macaulay's invasion, when he invaded India, I think the education was directly linked with job. So where here literacy, there is difference between literacy and education. Every education is, every literate person is not educated. When you are talking about research and innovation, I belong to National Institute of Open Schooling, which is world's largest open schooling system. We are not only, though we are autonomous body under Ministry of Education, but we have MOU with Ministry of Skill. Jan Shikshan Sansthan, we are certificating 36 lakhs laborers of unorganized sector. PMG Disha, we are making digitally literate 1.5 persons of rural sector. So that kind of collaboration, we have collaboration with Ministry of Textile, we have with Ministry of Health also. You might have heard at COVID period there were workers, health workers also. So such kind of collaboration is there with other ministries also. So the demarcation and also the collaboration and sharing of finances with these ministries are also there. Jamnalal Bajaj institutions or Tata's were there. They were good private players and they were into education sector also. So I think private players are also giving their roles, they are having their role. And also when we talk about school education, a good number of education is with this private schools. Higher education scenario is totally different or somewhat it is different. But when you say that research and education and spending, I think we have invested a lot in education sector. After Kothari Commission, new education policy had come in 1986. Before that, Mudaliar Commission was there in 1952. So after 34 years of big wait, this education policy has come and it talks about decentralization. It talks about interdisciplinary approach. I think in finance sector also inter-ministerial, interdepartmental approach is there, and this policy talks about these kind of links between different ministries, different organization and society. Vidya Pravesh is a very good initiative. You talked about PM Shri education, PM Shri schools. So we launched virtual school, NIUS launched first time virtual schools in India, and this was the seed of this digital university, what Professor Bajaj were talking about. So we have to work in that area. Research, innovation, yes, there are different agencies who are working in researches. Innovations are definitely needed, and with given a chance, given a good funding, I think we can do. India, we produce good scientists,
Right.
good technocrats to the world. Why not in India?
So what really is the concern? What is holding back the private sector to invest in a manner that we are seeing in other countries? So globally, the kind of model that we see, Mr. Tripathi, is that there is public and private spending together, also tax incentives to the educational institutions, which are the twin engine driving the transformation, driving the kind of knowledge sharing societies that we are seeing today, which we also want to become eventually. But there is something that is holding us back. So we are relying too much on public spending, or there is something which is holding back the private spending. What is the root cause of the problem?
But there are two things. I would suggest that if oil was the fuel of last century, creativity is going to be the fuel for this century. Creativity does not mean doing basic metal research by all engineering students. There could be innovation, which could be process innovation, which could be product innovation, which could be an ease of making such a project.
Right.
Like you see, IISc, Indian Institute of Science, was originally established by Tata Groups. So not that private sector has not done its bit, but ICAR, ICMR, most of this research in agriculture and medical institutions is being done by government. The opportunity for us is to link industry with academia and give sabbatical to the academic world to join industry so that they will know what industry needs. Otherwise, you write a paper which is meaningless, even if it is a good research, who is going to produce that thing? So there is a link which is creativity, or rather creatively solving the problem of India. And if such type of research is promoted, there is a bright future. Second thing I would like to say that as far as money is concerned, money has never been a problem. You take the space science, money was never a problem. Private sector was allowed, immediately private sector people have come.
Right.
Today you see startup culture. Young boys and girls, they don't have any family background of doing business. Young boys and girls of 35 to 40 years, maybe 25 to 40 years of this age bracket, they have put 100 plus unicorns in last 2 years or last 5 years. More than 100,000 startups have been created which are solving the problem of India. So it is not that only research will solve the problem. Even we can adopt the research the way what we call it Chinese model. They copied it and convert it into suitable to their own situation. Something like that we should do it so that we can become Atmanirbhar. If Nagarik is Sarkar Nirbhar, Desh cannot become Atmanirbhar. So we have to make Nagarik as Atmanirbhar, and that can happen through skill, through education, through such thing where he becomes employable. From being a jachak to giver, from being a job seeker to job provider. And that is the spirit that I was suggesting earlier, from taking test to taking risk. This is a pedagogical shift in the education system.
In fact, that bridge that you're talking about, between creativity and employability has been seen, Dr. Bajaj, if you'd agree with me, during the pandemic when, everything came to a standstill. It was actually technology, the EdTech sector that helped us stand up back on our feet. So the e-learning that we are so proud and confident about today is something that brought us and that actually gave us the opportunity to continue the process of learning. The fact is that there are huge expectations of the EdTech industry also, considering the manner and the trend in which they have grown in the last couple of years. But the focus clearly is going to be on fulfilling their expectations as well. So what do you expect the finance minister to do for the EdTech sector?
I would say the look at the growth of EdTech sector in last couple of years. That's, as you have said, tremendous growth. So I would say before taking up this question, that yes, NEP has been, a best thing which has happened in this century, or I would say this decade, and fantastic research has been done during, and innovation especially has been done during the pandemic. But then to come out with a proof of concept, and the whole energy was channelized and put into, lot of thrust was put into the research and innovation, right from top authorities. Everybody was into, the focus was innovation and research during the pandemic, whether it was writing papers, it was coming out with experiments, coming out with vaccination, coming out with the technologies which would serve, and the e-learning as well. Now the focus has to be, so to sustain and to have the similar ecosystem, the funding would be required for innovations, to carry out the innovations, to carry out with the startups as well, because startups based on technology or startups based on if they are coming out with some innovation, they would require some funding. That's one. And those startups and innovations would come from the campuses and not from the outside. Right from first year to final year, they would do experiments, and when they are matured, they will take up either job or they will come up with the startups. Coming to edtech companies, we expect, yes, the e-content creation, lot of thrust has to be given. And as it's a dream of Honorable Prime Minister, as we have started with engineering programs as well in the multiple languages, to support that, we would require e-content creation. We require skilling to happen and skilling to reach out to every student of the rural India. And for that also, we would require a lot of, the focus area and budget as well.
Right.
The second thing would be, if we are coming up with multiple languages, in that case, the research, the journals, the books, everything needs to be reached out and has to be, the contents have to be created in the local languages. So the language processing, the content creation, the research in that domain and in the local languages, because by that time, this is although a welcome move, but it is too late and people are accustomed to, work in a particular language. So to create the contents would take a lot of time and would require a lot of efforts as well, and the budget requirement as well. So these are good, I would say, for the edtech company. There was a budget and there would be increase in budget, because that is also one of the thrust area of the nation, wherein the government also wanted
the manner in which the sector has grown and the increasing role that it can play in catapulting India's reformatory efforts is something that is also important for the country. But moving to the other aspect, Mr. Tripathi, and one of the important reforms that we've been talking about for years, and now it seems it's going to be a reality, is the UGC announcing rules for international institutions of higher education to actually come here and set up campuses. So the best of education for which our youngsters are, flying abroad, they will be at our doorstep. How beneficial is it going to be in terms of higher education for the population that can actually not go because of lack of resources? And can we also experiment with an idea, because a lot of analysts have also spoken about the fact that why not our premier institutions like the IITs, like the IIMs, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, begin to, build up international institutions, international campuses, especially in our neighborhood, so it can expand India's arc of influence, the Vasudev Kutumbakam aspect that we keep talking about. So it will be propelling that policy also.
In fact, you have rightly said, if you are vocal for local, then now local should also go global.
Yes.
So that is a hope. I think some institutions like IITs, IIMs and some private universities are doing it already, and maybe at a mini school. But one thing I would agree that today our education sector is ready to welcome foreign universities. Let them set up their campus, let them not go digital route, so that they will also know what is to be taught to the Indian students. Otherwise, digital, they will make a run-of-the-mill program and say that take your certificate. That would be a miscarriage of justice, even education also. So this will give a competition to our apex institution. They will also be willing to compete against them. Suppose if HBS, Harvard is putting a campus here, the Harvard modeled IIMs like Ahmedabad will have to also improve. Otherwise, they will lose their business.
True.
Maybe some of them may lose their existence. So this is a good, healthy competition for better knowledge, A. And B, it might also give us an opportunity to showcase them that our education system is not that bad, the way people think, or maybe it is being perpetuated. After all, we run the highest number, nobody can match us. 27 crore students going every day to the school in 1400, almost 14 lakh schools available in India with 95 lakh teachers. So that, and with all these efforts, we have been able to universalize primary education. So let's be proud of that. Now the time is to universalize not only primary education, but including skill up to secondary education. If this target we can achieve, we will take away the pressure of education as if it is only for job. Education could be for skill also, and skill they can become a job provider than being job seeker. So this tectonic shift has to come, and the way I think as a student of political science, or the way we are teaching in IIP training institutions, the higher policymaker that, sir, kindly teach students and teach teachers to decolonize their mind and mindset. We are still, Madam was saying that about Macaulay, and Macaulay designed our Indian situation that we should know only English, how to type, and become a very good clerk who will always follow the idea and advice of the masters. Today we have to think differently. Here, English is only a skill. It is not, if I know Oriya, I can do the same thing, and despite knowing, not knowing any English also. We have given too much emphasis on knowing English. Life of children is lost in learning one language, and then they don't learn the creativity. So decolonizing the mindset of teachers and this teaching bureaucracy is a major thing that we have to see. In fact, people say that in mining, and one of my colleagues was saying, Anil Swarupji, that there are mafia in mining underground, but in education sector they roam overground. Exactly. We have to come out of that mindset that we, instead of thirsting education, let's thirst creativity. Children know how to establish themselves.
And especially when, you know, the challenges are so local in nature and we are looking at local solutions, we need to obviously put our focus on the local languages and local ways of learning as well. But one important aspect, Professor Bajaj, in that aspect, I would like to ask is, you've raised a lot of concerns initially about the kind of reforms that we've actually managed to undergo over the last couple of years. But is there scope further to ease financial, some regulatory challenges that still persist and which hold us back from, looking at the transformation that we visualize for India?
I don't think so. I'm a great promoter for innovations, and I have seen the kind of liberty and the platform which this government has given to the students. It was never been faced any time. I was addressing language in some different way, but then I would also say that yes, language has never been bar for anybody's growth, and I see to it that with NEP being there, wherein plethora of the topics have been ensured, and it covers from child education to till he becomes fully employed. Whether so, it gives you education and literate and education, the qualification and education which Madam has mentioned about. So I don't think challenges would be there, because now the Indian educators are being trained, and the government, the way they are looking at the different aspects, whether it is a skilling, whether it is a languages, whether it is a digitization, whether it is a online education, whether it is promoting and making those rules conducive to the learner. Doesn't matter you are working and earning a degree online, whether it is offline, dual degree, but then you just make yourself to be employed or skilled or become a job seeker or the provider. Everyone is getting opportunity. So I think even if there are challenges, the segment would the education authorities would make that to be conducive for the learner.
Absolutely,
and the
you're right.
education
And the bottom line clearly of the discussion that we've had today with three of you is that education is the foundation that drives transformation. Thankfully and fortunately, this government has given that kind of thrust to the sector that it requires. COVID has proved to be a huge challenge, but let's see, expectations are huge. Despite the global uncertainties and the challenges that persist, what really can the finance minister do for this sector is something that we'll have to wait and watch till the 1st of February. But for now, I'll have to wind up the program. Thank you once again, Professor Bajaj, for joining us on the program, and Mr. Tripathi, Professor Sharma. It's an honor to have you in the studio today and understand from you the various aspects, the expectations and the challenges that the education sector face in India today. So with that, I'll have to wind up the program. Thank you very much, viewers, for your time as well. See you same time next week. Take good care of yourselves. Keep watching Sansad TV.